Samarbeer? Reproduction. What is reproduction? No one can answer. Okay, Shaima, can you? Yes, Jesslyn. Jess, how do you pronounce your name? First, you tell me that. I don't want to say it wrong.
Jesslyn.
It's Jesslyn, right? Tell me, what is
The
reproduction?
process in which an organism reproduces an offspring which is similar or identical to the parent.
Correct. Now that reproduction only is of two basic types. The first one is asexual reproduction. The second one is sexual reproduction. Now, in the case of asexual reproduction, only one parent is involved. Whereas in the case of sexual reproduction, both the parents are involved in the process. Okay, who is raising their hand? Okay. All right. So talking about the asexual reproduction. So in this type, new individuals are produced from a single parent. Also, there is no gamete formation. Now, why? Can somebody tell me why there is no gamete formation in asexual reproduction?
Because gamete doesn't.
Because there's only one parent.
And also the gamete fusion is not.
Correct. First of all, the most basic thing, it is only uniparental, right? Secondly, even if there was something, like there is no gamete fusion, right? So why would the gametes be formed anyhow? Now, the offspring produced as a result of asexual reproduction, they are known as clones. Why are they known as clones?
Because they look exactly similar to the parent.
Yes, because they are just exact copies of the parents. Also, they are the copies of each other. For example, 2, 3 offsprings are there. They look same like each other. Also, they will resemble their parents. Now, there are many ways through which asexual reproduction takes place. Let us look at that one by one. Now, fission. Do you people remember in which organism fission takes place?
Yes, ma'am. Binary fusion, amoeba, and multiple plasmodium.
Plasmodium. So, in the fission, what happens is that one, like the parent body would split into two, right? Divide into two daughter cells. Now, fission takes place, like fission is of two types. Binary fission is there, multiple fission is there. In the case of binary fission, what happens? First of all, the DNA would divide, it would start going to the different poles. Then the cytoplasm will divide, which ultimately results into two daughter cells. Now, this is the binary fission. It takes place in the amoeba and paramecium. Talking about multiple fission. So, multiple fission takes place in plasmodium and it takes place under unfavorable conditions, wherein what happens? One organism divides into many daughter cells. But before this division, cyst formation takes place. Sort of like a covering is there. And when that covering breaks, so many daughter cells are released. This is multiple fission. It takes place in the case of plasmodium. Then comes budding. Now, budding takes place in the hydra or the yeast. Now, tell me, this bud that the budding that we are talking about, inside that, like in the budding type of asexual reproduction, buds are formed, right? So, is that bud an outgrowth or an ingrowth?
Outgrowth.
Outgrowth. It is sort of like a projection, right? Formed
Yes,
on the
ma'am.
parent's body. Now, what happens to this bud? Tell me, bud has been formed. Then what will happen?
Bird will grow. Bird will grow and will detach from the parent body.
And then?
And then
And then it will
It
live
will
like
develop
a...
into a new individual.
Oh, okay.
then it will become an independent organism, right? Independent individual. Now here comes your regeneration. Regeneration takes place in these many organisms: Planaria, Hydra, starfish. Also, in the regeneration again, it is an ability, right? It is an ability to give rise to new individual organism from the body parts of one. Then comes the fragmentation, which takes place in Spirogyra. Also, the teeny tiny detail to remember over here is that now when we are talking about fragmentation, we are mentioning simple multicellular organism, meaning now more number of cells are there in the body. So this is simple multicellular organism. Also, tell me one thing. If you try to compare unicellular and multicellular together, which one do you think is primitive and which one do you think is advanced? Out of multicellular and unicellular, which one is primitive and which one is more advanced?
Multicellular is advanced.
Okay. The reason being?
They have a complex body structure than unicellular organisms.
Correct. They have a complex, meaning there are so many cells. And you must remember from class 9th maybe that a group of cells make tissues. A group of tissues make organs. And a group of organs, what do they make?
An organism?
No, but before that it makes organ system. Okay. So here we are like slowly seeing that when an organism becomes multicellular, meaning more than two cells are there, so division of labor can take place, right? Different cells can perform different functions, like how in our body the normal body cells are there for different function, reproductive cells are for different function. So here a division of work is there. So this is the reason why fragmentation type of reproduction, it is taking in a slightly higher organism, a simple form of multicellular organism, and that is the example is a spirogyra. Now here, after maturation, the body would break up into certain fragments, and then each of those fragments would grow into new individuals. That is fragmentation. Now moving forward, the next type of asexual reproduction is spore formation. Now, spore formation takes place in the case of rhizopus, that is the bread mold, mucor, and both of these are fungi, fungus. Okay. Now, how does spore formation takes place? See, spores are like tiny cells and they are formed inside the structure which is known as sporangia. Okay, and when these spores are liberated, as soon as they come in contact with a moist surface, hot and humid climate, all of these things, then these spores would develop into the new individuals. Got it? Now, can somebody tell me why moist surface and humid climate? Why do the spores only develop into new individuals when they come in contact with a moist surface? Anyone? No?
It helps them germinate.
Yeah. See, what happens is that the moist surface and hot and humid climate, these are the three conditions when fungus grow. This is the reason why when you leave the food out in the summer days, the food goes bad. The fungus outgrowth is there on. So it is because of that condition, because the fungus requires that moist surface. It requires damp and humid type of places. That is why. And this is the reason why we put our food in the fridge. Okay. So that is spore formation. Now coming on to the last method of asexual reproduction, that is vegetative propagation. Now, as I said that in the body, there are two types of cells. The first one is the reproductive cells that are like present or responsible for the reproduction process. Then there are the body cells. Now the body cells, they can also be called as the vegetative cells, and they are responsible for the normal body functions. So in the case of vegetative propagation, instead of reproductive organs, vegetative parts are there that are producing new plants. Which vegetative part? Root, stems, or leaves. Just as it is. See, this question is like it is there in so many questions. As it is. Root, stem, or root, leaves, or stems, or whatever. The order may be changed, but these three words will be there whenever it is about vegetative propagation. So here there is no reproductive organ involved in this process. The vegetative parts are involved, such as the root, leaves, or stems. Now, if the vegetative propagation is being done by roots, so it happens in the case of dahlia and sweet potato. If it is done by stem, so in the case of ginger, it is rhizome. In the case of potato, it is tuber. And in the case of onion, it is bulb. Now, the last one, that is by leaves. So if the vegetative propagation happens by leaf, that takes place in bryophyllum plants. Now, there is a specialty about bryophyllum is that the margin of its leaves, it has buds. Again, an outgrowth. Now, these buds, when they detach from the leaf, they grow into a whole new bryophyllum plant. So, this is vegetative propagation. Now, all of the ways, either by root, stem, or leaves that we saw, all of these are natural. But there are some artificial methods of vegetative propagation too. What are those methods? Cutting, layering, grafting. These methods are artificial methods of vegetative propagation. So if they ask you in the question, what are the artificial methods of vegetative propagation, what would you say? You'd say cutting, layering, and grafting. Now coming on to, okay, we saw, okay, and another question, amongst the asexual and the sexual reproduction, which one do you think is more advanced?
Sexual reproduction.
Sexual reproduction. Does anybody know why?
It involves two parents.
It involves two parents, yes. What makes it special or what makes it advanced?
It's mostly seen in the
species
One by
and
one. Say. Who was saying? What happened now? No one will say. See, the reason why sexual reproduction is more advanced is because, first of all, since two parents are involved, so there is gamete fusion, right? And since during the process of gamete fusion, two different cells are fusing, so new varieties, new characters, those are introduced, right? Variation is there. And this is the reason why sexual reproduction is much more advanced and much more advantageous as compared to asexual reproduction. But that does not mean that asexual reproduction does not have advantages. Here they are. First of all, it takes less time as compared to sexual reproduction. It takes much less time. Then, secondly, it is very less complicated because obviously gamete formation, gamete fusion, all these complicated methods are not there. So it is very much less complicated as compared to sexual reproduction. And third is that since the offsprings are exact copies of their parents, so the asexual reproduction sort of preserves the parental characters, meaning those parental characters are sent into the offspring. Now just imagine the parent died. Then this offspring would reproduce. Again, it will be a clone only. So the preservation of the parental character is done. So these three are the advantages of asexual reproduction. Now asexual reproduction is clear to everyone?
yes.
Okay. Now, can somebody tell me what are pollinators? What are pollinators?
The agents are you talking about?
If I tell you the answer, then if I tell you the answer, I tell you the answer. You tell me, what are
Ma'am,
pollinators?
insects, wind and
Biotic and abiotic. Like
Yeah, but if
biotic
I say
animals.
what are pollinators, so you're supposed to say the agents that bring about pollination or the
ma'am,
agent.
insects, wind and
Water.
But before jumping on to insect, wind, and water, you'll first tell me what are pollinators. They are the agents, right?
they
Second,
are the
then
agents
you'll
which
tell me
make
what type.
pollination possible.
Yeah, and then they are classified into two types, biotic and
Yes.
abiotic. Then you will
Okay.
tell me what is the meaning of biotic and abiotic.
Bro,
Biotic means
Animals and insect and
no,
abiotic.
the meaning of biotic. I'm not talking about the
Uh,
example. The
living.
Biotic means living. Abiotic means non-living. Then
Yes.
you'll tell me the examples. Then it comes wind and water for non-living, that is abiotic pollinators, and animals, first of all, in biotic pollinators. Now, in the animals, insects are the most common type of pollinators, and more particularly honeybees. That is why we have seen honeybees wandering around so many flowers. It looks beautiful, but I'm scared of honeybees.
that's like too long for a 2 mark answer.
No, but I'm just telling you so that it's a revision class, so I'm supposed to do that so that you people don't forget.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Hmm. Okay, now what else should I ask you? What is a food chain? A food chain. Hmm? Anyone? What is a food chain? No one. What happened? Where are you? Where did everyone go? Is my voice like, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is food chain? Or shall I continue teaching this chapter only? You don't want questions?
Ma'am, a food chain is a chain of food.
Very good. 5 marks for that question.
For real. 5 marks extra for handwriting.
Yeah. Even though that was an oral question, I'll give you 10 marks for handwriting. Be happy.
Okay, ma'am. मैम सबसे अच्छी लेकिन आपकी है यहाँ पे
सबसे अच्छी?
सबसे अच्छी आपकी
हाँ तो
हैंडराइटिंग है
मेरी
यहाँ
ही
पे
दिखती है ना आप लोग को मेरी हैंडराइटिंग दिखती है
but ma'am
anyway.
you are a good competition to my sister. Okay, my sister has like handwriting is so damn good.
Okay, nice to hear that. Thank you. Now let us talk about the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. But before that, I want you people to tell me what is the difference between haploid and diploid. What is the difference between haploid and diploid? Anyone? Jasmine, can you say what is the difference between haploid and diploid?
Haploid is like only one set of chromosomes, and diploid has two sets of chromosomes.
Very good. So if I ask you the example for both, what would you say? Like which, like if I want you to give me an example of a haploid cell, what would you give the example?
Ma'am, diploid I can give zygote.
Okay,
And
haploid.
haploid. Ma'am, let me think.
What's there to think? You know zygote, you don't know haploid. What is
Is it
zygote
the
made up of?
parent? Yeah, zygote.
No, not parent. Parent is diploid. The
Uh,
gametes. The gametes are
oh,
haploid.
okay.
Right? When two haploids were fusing, then only a diploid zygote was being formed.
Yes,
Okay. Now tell me another thing that okay, what are the different parts of a flower
different parts. One is, I know, ma'am. Accessories. One is
Stigma and
reproductive.
oviduct.
Second one is like
What did you say?
One second.
Somebody said oviduct. I heard oviduct. Did somebody say oviduct?
not me, ma'am.
By mistake, by mistake.
Adil, did you say oviduct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. No, oviduct here, no. It's in humans, not in plants. See, okay, I'll tell you in a
Ma'am,
hierarchy.
this
Yes.
Ma'am, I know.
Uh-huh.
Ma'am, like accessory units, and second one is reproductive.
Very good. Exactly. This is what I was wanting to hear.
My unit, but you didn't listen, so what should I do?
You did say this.
Yeah, I told one.
Anyway, even if I did not listen to you, but your answer is right. There are two units. The basic, okay. The highest unit, if you want to describe a flower in, is like accessory and reproductive. Reproductive units are the ones that are directly involved in the process of reproduction, more particularly sexual reproduction. Whereas the accessory unit of the flower, it is involved in the like reproduction process, but indirectly. Now,
Like petals,
tell me what are the components that come under the reproductive unit?
male and female, ma'am.
Male and female what?
Uh, I don't know that. But I can tell you the second one. SSI unit, petals and
And
sepals.
petals and sepals. But in the reproductive unit, how don't you remember? You said male and female, but there is a technical term there.
Oh, I don't know.
Pistil and stamen, you people don't remember?
Yes. Oh, stamen, pistil. Okay.
These are the male and female parts, right?
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
if you want to go on to a broader level, you can say gynoecium and androecium as well. Okay, and one unit of that androecium will be the stamen, and one unit of the gynoecium will be the pistil, or you can call it as the carpel also. Now tell me,
Yes.
what are the parts of a stamen? Who can tell me?
Stamen.
Anybody? Wait, Karishma. Is there anyone else who can tell me what are the parts of stamen?
Anther and filament.
Anther and filament. And what are the parts of?
Female, can I tell?
Say.
Ma'am, two I told you, and style, stigma, and ovary.
Yeah. Stigma, style, and ovary. Now, out of stigma, style, and ovary, which one is the landing portion for pollen?
Stigma.
And which one is the swollen basal part?
Ma'am, style.
Swollen basal part.
Ovary.
Ovary is the swollen basal part, whereas style is the long, slender part. It is the thin part that is in between. Now, tell me one thing. What happens when the pollen grain lands on the stigma? After that, what happens? What happens after the pollen grains land on the stigma?
The male gamete is formed, passes through the pollen tube.
But before that, the pollen tube germination happens. First of all, the pollen tube forms. Then only the male gametes travel. And why does it travel? Because it has to fuse with the egg cell. So before traveling of the male gamete, first the tube will be formed. Okay. And this formation of the pollen tube is also known as pollen germination. All right. Okay, yeah. What are the two types of pollination? You can tell me?
Self-pollination, cross-pollination.
Can you tell me what happens in both?
In self-pollination, the pollen grain of the same plant It's traveled to the stigma of the same style.
Same plant or same flower.
And in cross-pollination, the pollen grain of another flower is transferred to the stigma of another flower.
Very good. Okay. Now, who can give me the example of a unisexual flower?
Ma'am, can I?
Wait, let me see if anybody else knows this. Unisexual flower example. Who can say? You can say that, ma'am, can I? I'll let you say the answer. No one?
Ma'am, watermelon?
Watermelon. And
Yes.
what else?
Papaya.
And papaya. Papaya. Papaya and watermelon. Like, see, there are many unisexual flowers, but I am going according to the ones that are given in your book. So, papaya and watermelon. And what are the two examples of bisexual?
Ma'am, can I tell, please?
Say.
Mustard and hibiscus.
Mustard and hibiscus. Very good. Okay. Okay, can somebody tell me what are the post-fertilization events?
Post-fertilization.
Like
Ovule develops into like seed, converted into seed, and ovary into fruit and what?
See, actually does not convert. You can say matures into. The ovule will start maturing and it will mature into the seed.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, what? Okay, wait. Okay, tell me one thing. What is the meaning of primary sex organ? Like, what are the two functions? Tell me two functions of a sex organ.
It induces the hormones
and
develops the gametes.
Very good. These are the two basic and the main functions. The first one is that production of hormones, whether in the case of female, then it is the female hormone. If it in the case of male, then it is the male hormone. Then those hormones, they would make the, like, influence the formation of gametes. So the production of gametes and the production of the male or female hormone, that is the function of the sex organ. Now, testes and ovaries are the two sex organs. One is testes, that is present in males, and the other is ovaries, that is present in females. Now, can somebody tell me the testes are present inside? What is the
Scrotum.
structure that? And the scrotum hangs outside the body because?
Because what do you say? It like needs to maintain a lower temperature, like 2 to 3 degrees less than the normal body temperature.
Why?
For the formation of testosterone.
From the formation of?
For the formation of
What?
testosterone.
No, for the formation of sperm.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Okay, what is the function of placenta?
It provides food and nutrition from the mother to the developing zygote.
Very good. Not the zygote, the developing fetus or embryo.
Yeah.
Not the zygote, because you know, as soon as the zygote is formed, it starts changing into an embryo. Okay, so then zygote is no more there. It becomes an embryo, then embryo further develops into a fetus. Okay, so yes, your answer is right, but the word is fetus. Okay, now tell me, can you name some of the bacterial diseases that are sexually transmitted?
HIV, AIDS.
Bacterial.
Gonorrhea and syphilis.
Ma'am, gonorrhea and syphilis.
Correct. And see, HIV human immunovirus. Viruses, that's the viral disease which causes AIDS. Okay.
Ma'am, what's is like viral, right?
It is.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Can somebody tell me? Oh, okay. What is the function of this thing? Okay. What are the various methods of contraception? First of all, tell me what is contraception.
Ma'am, this contraceptive methods are used to avoid unwanted pregnancies.
Correct. What are the different types of methods?
Mechanical and
Hmm.
surgical and one more. Chemical.
Intrauterine contraceptive device.
Yeah,
What?
chemical, mechanical, and surgical.
Okay. So what happens in the surgical method of contraception?
What, ma'am?
What happens in the surgical method of contraception?
Ma'am, there are two methods of surgical methods. One for
Hmm.
females and one for males. For males, it is called for males it is called vasectomy, and for females it is called tubectomy. For in vasectomy, um, I guess the vast difference is like tied up so that the sperms can't transfer. And
Hmm.
for like tubectomy, the I guess ovary or ovule something, there is like
Hmm.
it's like tied up. I don't remember exactly.
You
So that
can't
the egg
tie
can't reach.
ovary or ovule. An ovule is not there in female, human female.
Okay.
The fallopian tube is blocked.
Yes, the fallopian tube. And this ovule that you're saying, that's like, see, ova is there in case of females, not the ovule. And obviously, you cannot tie an ova. The fallopian tubes, like the tubes in the males were tied, same way the tubes in the females will also be tied. Okay, cut and tied, not just tied. It gets cut. That is why it is a surgical method. It gets cut and then it gets tied. Okay. Okay, so in the chemical method of contraception, two things are there, right? Pills are there and copper T or loop is there. What is the difference between them?
Ma'am, pills like they generally changed the hormone balance of the body of the female,
Hmm.
and
The copper T or loop, what does it do? Even that is this thing.
I think
Chem
property is not in the chemical.
it is. See, both of them are basically like the loop or the copper T, it is present in the, like it is placed in the uterus and they prevent the pregnancy. See, the copper ones would release the copper, obviously, but these methods like IUDs, intrauterine devices, these are like chemical methods again to prevent the pregnancy. Now, of course, with the contraception comes the side effects also. Most common side effect is irregular menstrual cycle. Now, the main question, which brings me to the question, tell me why, like, okay, what is menstruation? What is menstruation?
The breakdown of the inner lining of the uterus.
And why does
And
that happen?
when the egg is not fertilized.
Very good. So then that is shed out of the body in the form of bleeding, right?
Yes, along with blood and mucus.
Very good. Also, the whole lining of the uterus is shed down. Okay. All right. Now you people only tell me what do you want to learn? Is there anything you want to ask me? Because I am out of questions now. Tell me, like it's especially the students who are like here, like in the class with me for the first time. You people only tell me, is there something you want me to, teach you again, or is there something you want me to discuss?
Ma'am, could you
Ma'am,
do the revision of the first chapter?
The first chapter.
Yeah, life process.
Okay, wait. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Coming on to life processes. So, what are life processes? All those process that happens so that human life can be maintained and they can be sustained. Those are the life processes. Now, for the life processes or all these processes that takes place in our body, we need energy. And where do we get that energy from? We get it from the nutrition that we have, right? The food that we take. Now, in the case of single-celled organisms, meaning the unicellular organisms, here the nutrition, it takes place by simple diffusion, wherein the substance, any nutrition, meaning whether it is whatever kind of nutrition, it goes from a region of its higher concentration to the region of its lower concentration, right? Simple diffusion. Now let us talk about nutrition. So nutrition, it is the process of obtaining food for health and growth. Of course, nutrition is of two types, autotrophic and heterotrophic. Autotrophic mode of nutrition is the one wherein the food is prepared by the organisms themselves. In this comes all the green plants and some of the bacteria. Basically, in the case of autotrophism or autotrophic nutrition, what happens is that certain inorganic sources such as carbon dioxide, water, these complexes are taken and then the food is prepared with these. If it is done in the presence of light, then that is photosynthesis. But if it is done in the presence of certain chemicals, then that is chemosynthesis. In the case of all the green plants, photosynthesis takes place. And in case of most of the bacteria, and no, actually some of the bacteria, chemosynthesis takes place. And then in the some, like in some other bacteria, photosynthesis also takes place. So in bacteria, both kind can be there, but in the green plants, mostly the most common type is photosynthesis. Photo is the photon. It means packet of light. Now, the process by which green plants make their own food with the help of carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, and chlorophyll is known as photosynthesis. Now, after like we are saying that the process by which the plants make their own food, right? The food of the plant is glucose, right? And after this glucose has been formed, then it is stored in the plant's body in the form of starch. Glucose gets converted into starch to be stored in the plant's body. Always remember, starch is the stored food. This can also be asked directly, what is the stored food of the plant? So starch is. So the plant stores the food product in the form of starch. You can call it as the reserve food material, stored food material. Now, Moving forward, let us look at what are the certain processes. But before that, look at the equation of photosynthesis. 6 molecules of carbon dioxide along with 12 molecules of water in the presence of chlorophyll molecule or the chlorophyll pigment and in the presence of sunlight, these two compounds are converted into C6H12O6, that is glucose, the chemical formula for glucose. Along with that, 6 molecules of water and 6 molecules of oxygen is also formed. And this oxygen is the one that we use for breathing, not just humans, animals. Right? Animals and humans, they breathe in the oxygen. Now let us look at the certain processes of photosynthesis. The first process is the absorption of light energy by the chlorophyll. See, the pigment chlorophyll, which gives the plant's body a green color also. First of all, what it does is that it absorbs the light energy. When the light energy has been absorbed by the chlorophyll molecule, then this light energy gets converted into chemical energy. And also along with that, the water molecules also split so as to form hydrogen and oxygen. Because we know hydrogen and oxygen, if we combine them, we get the water. So the water gets broken down. The two components that we get after that is hydrogen and the oxygen. The third process that takes place in photosynthesis, after the water splitting has been done, then this CO2 that we were talking about, this CO2 gets reduced into carbohydrate, and this carbohydrate is glucose. Up till now, is everything clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Now moving forward, talking about stomata, the one that everyone knows, right? It is a pore-like structure, and always remember one thing, that stomata will be in abundance, meaning in more in number towards the underneath surface of the leaf, like the under surface, not the upper one. Why? So that excessive water loss is reduced by this mechanism. This is the reason why stomata in the undersurface of the leaf, like the lower surface of the leaf, will have much more number of stomata as compared to the upper surface. So what is the reason? The reason is to avoid the loss of water. Also remember another thing is that with the help of stomata, the gaseous exchange takes place. So the gaseous exchange takes place, but you must remember that this stomata can close and open. Okay, it has this property, and it does so with the help of guard cells. So we can say that the guard cells are responsible for the opening and closing of the stomatal pore, right? Like how normal guards are there guarding the gates and stuff, like they open the close, like open and close the gate. Same way the guard cells perform the same function. Now, but how do they do it? So the guard cells, they regulate the opening and the closing of stomata by getting swollen up or shrunken down. Like the guard cells, they swell up as water flows in them. And this is the reason why the stomatal pore would open. As soon as the guard cells would swell up, the stomatal pore will open. Now, as the water which was, absorbed by them, it gets released. Okay, it gets like out of the guard cell, then it gets shrunken. And since it gets shrunken, the stomatal pore closes. So we can say that the guard cells, they are responsible for the opening and closing of stomata. Got it? Any doubts up till now?
No, ma'am.
All right, then let's just keep it in here only for today. Now in the next class, we'll be continuing from here. Now see, we have a lot of time left before the exam, right? So I was thinking that like how I am teaching you this whole chapter yet again, I'll do that for all the chapters so that it will be refreshed, sort of like reboot version of your chapter. Okay.
Ma'am, can I say